Actually, I have a question about this. If you can recall from your personal or professional background or life experiences, what was the most successful conflict resolution if someone didn't, either from your team or from your superiors, didn't think like you and saw the situation differently? What it is that helped to resolve this conflict?
A situation immediately pops up. I was working very, very hard in my head, in my mind. I was climbing ladders, and it came to a point where my peer and we were on the same level. My boss at the time put me under her. And so we were peers, we were friends. I thought I was it at work. And it was this incredibly humbling experience that I did not receive well. And I kicked and screamed and cried. And as I reflect on it now, probably did not behave as someone that I would be proud of now. And I kicked and screamed until I got my way. And eventually my boss removed me from under her and we began to be peers again. And probably about 2 years later, the tables were reversed and I had the opportunity to manage her and she rolled under me. And the grace and the humility and the love that she cared for in this decision, she wasn't hostile, she wasn't mad, she couldn't have been more supportive of me in my career. And it was this humbling moment and a teacher, she is a teacher and still a dear, dear friend of mine, but it was this moment that someone could teach me how I wanted to behave and how I wished I behaved. So it was observation, but it was also through experience and actually feeling the whole spectrum in my body and mind.
It's a beautiful example, but I don't think it's a typical example. Because the most typical one is when people were peers and then one is put under another, it's kicking and screaming like you did. It's really more typical, I think you would agree, being in the corporate world for that long. And of course, we know that in these moments, it's nothing else but ego struggles. When it's not about how can we work together in collaboration, how we can cooperate, but who is the decision maker, whose word is the most important word. And I believe that the way your peer, who became then who has been your friend, it's just this. You used 3 words that really sum it up: humility, wholeheartedness, and love. When we recognize our desire to be on top, our desire to win, our desire to get the top position, when we recognize it, because we all know it, it's again our human nature, nothing wrong with it. But when we recognize it and then ask, okay, again, taking this space, breathing and saying, if it were not about competition and who is on top and who is the boss, but if it were about the most efficient cooperation, what would I do? How would I behave? And I think, and again, another thing, it's a small technique, you can call it technique or practice. All our ego happens, ego thing, ego fight, ego preoccupation with our ego happens in our head. And cooperation happens in our heart. So just when we are so engrossed in ego struggle, nobody recognized me, I'm nothing, or I'm such a great person and they don't see it, it's all here. Mm-hmm. If we take our hand from here to here, yes, and ask ourselves, what if it were not about who is right, who is wrong, who is better, who is worse, but how can we cooperate in the most efficient way. This will solve so many problems in the world in large, in our personal lives, in our professional lives. Whenever we need to deal with other people, coming from here into here can solve the problem. Here we are on autopilot, we react. Here we create, here we love, here we cooperate.
I love that. I'm a little embarrassed to have told that story, but I do think it is relevant.
I think it's it takes a lot of courage to tell the story like this, because I'm sure not many people would be able to recognize themselves in your friend, but many people will be able to recognize themselves in you, because it's much more typical reaction. It's much more immediate reaction is kicking and screaming. So I think, thank you for bringing it up. I think most people I can relate to it, no question. It's harder to relate to your friend, although I believe that she behaved the way she did, but it's rather unusual.
Yeah, and for those that are listening, I would just say my friend is one of my greatest teachers, and I don't know, through my evolution of becoming more present and aware in my own life and moving from my head to my heart and living from my heart, I'm so grateful for her, and she is one of my greatest teachers because of that moment. And so, you know, from an ego point of view, or from, if you're looking at it, like, she made such a profound impact on my life. And yeah, that is from...
You're lucky in encountering a person like this, and it can be a very humbling and life-changing experience. I can see that.
Yeah.